This is the Tyler Morgan Show on Relentless Dairy Media Network.
Welcome to the land of bourbon and bad decisions, where the nights are long and the truth cuts deep. Voices rise against the tide with clear intentions in the place where freedom never sleeps. Tomorrow, I will chase away the whispers of sorrow. Stand tall, never bow, the fight's just beginning. With every word, the fire keeps on spinning. Let the roar, and got a message for the nation. Raising up the flag with no hesitation. Through the storm, the fire burns bright. On the edge of reason, we defend our world.
Welcome back to Land of Bourbon and Bad Decisions. This is the Tyler Morgan Show, live on twitch.tv/Tyler Morgan Show, or live on YouTube at youtube.com/@the Tyler Morgan Show. Why the at or the? I don't know. It's just YouTube's rules, and I gotta play by their game. So, anyways, all the craziness that could possibly be crazied is being crazied as we speak, and has been for the last couple of days, and I'm going to get into it. But first, again, if you're new to the channel on Twitch or YouTube, be sure to subscribe, hit bells for notifications, all that happy stuff. You know, it helps if I click the buttons. I make the little animations pop up on the screen. Oh, there they go. If you're a listener, friends, family, and anyone who you think would either be entertained or highly annoyed by this show. Anyways, before we get into all the crazy, as I've mentioned, I have to find the right buttons to click on the screen. Alrighty. So, for things, let me tell you about coffee. Yes, coffee, the wonderful, wonderful beverage that makes my world go round. And my favorite coffee comes from the fine folks at American Pride Roasters. American Pride Roasters, small, literally a homegrown company from Runnels, Iowa. Everything is roasting ground order. Check out their amazing lineups of freedom-loving coffees from American Pride Roasters. Me, personally, I am a coffee-flavored coffee guy. I am a huge fan of the other Teddy Roosevelt, the Frederick Douglass. Recently, I've gotten into the Golden Spike. The Golden Spike is amazing. If you're into dark coffees, dark roasted coffees, it's a blend of whatever dark roasted coffees they have on hand that go ahead and grind up and send out to you. I'm not a big dark coffee guy, and I really like the Golden Blend. Or the Golden Spike. Really, really good. And they have some great flavored coffees as well. The George Washington Carver is a peanut flavored coffee, and I got the peanut butter and chocolate version of that, and it is also a quite tasty beverage. Check them out today. American Pride Roasters, aprcoffee.com. Historically great coffee. Alrighty, so all the craziness that is ready to crazy just to drive people insane. This week, a story broke that apparently the Trump administration shot down a medical plane over the deserts of New Mexico during a GPS jamming test, which, if you break it down, it does seem a little on the sketch side. But that's just if you're looking at through the eyes of, oh, I hate Donald Trump. Everything Donald Trump does is bullcrap, and he needs to be thrown out of office. Well, let's get a few facts straight. A month ago, or was it a couple months ago? I forget how long ago it was, but there was a plane crash in New Mexico that started like a 35,000 acre forest fire. And all 4 people on board, they died. Well, it has come out that at White Sands Missile Range, a test range by the United States, owned by the United States military, they were testing GPS jammers. And because it is not restricted airspace, like if they were doing this at, say, I don't know, Area 51. If they're doing this at Area 51, restricted airspace, they can run all the laser jammers they want out there. No one's going to care. But but this is unrestricted airspace over White Sands, New Mexico, and the missile range specifically. And they notified the FAA. They sent the FAA, hey, we're doing these weapons tests. And there's a possibility that if there are civilian aircraft flying through here, they will lose their GPS. So the FAA sends out a NOTAMs message to everyone whose flight path goes across White Sands Missile Range. And in it states there is military testing going on that could cause a disruption to your GPS on the aircraft. Be prepared to fly by sight, fly by airport beacon until you clear the area. And here's how big of an issue it was. There were 4 flights that evening. The first 3 flights were flying to, I forget which little airport they were flying to, Ruidoso, I think. But they're flying over White Sands. And, our GPS went out. They notify the airfield. The airfield goes, we got you. The airfield uses their system to send a beacon that the aircraft can pilot along with, as well as looking out the windows. And I know it's nighttime, but you look out the windows, you see lights and kind of get your bearing for where you're at. And they made it to the airport and landed successfully. Then this medical flight comes through. Again, like the previous 3 flights, they fly over White Sands while the testing is going on. They lose their GPS. They call the airport, say, hey, we've lost our GPS. And they say, hey, no problem, fam. We're going to send you the signal. We're going to send you the beacon, so that way you can use it to navigate to us. And shortly after that, they crashed. Now, it's come out that the pilots had misidentified lights as being the airport, and so they were setting up their glide path for these lights. And in the process of not confirming it, that this is where we are flying to, and they're flying towards these lights, they got too low and they hit the mountaintop, and it killed everyone on board. So as the story is coming out, the left is just dogpiling on the military. Well, not so much the military, but their favorite whipping boy for the military, Pete Hegseth, and Donald Trump. Donald Trump, it's their fault. Well, my question is, before you can be instrument rated on an aircraft, to where that's the only thing you're flying by, is instruments only. Before you can be instruments only, don't you have to be visually rated on a small aircraft? Being able to go not only with looking at your gauges and saying, okay, here's my altimeter, here's my airspeed, here's my ground speed. If you have a ground speed indicator on your craft, I don't know. I'm not a pilot. I don't know what all has them or not, but I digress. But you have all these gauges that tells you your pitch, your attitude, your altitude, all of that. And you look out the windows. And if you're flying at night, you have to use lights, use silhouettes of landmarks, of the terrain. Have pilots gotten so just dependent on all their instrumentation that they forgot the basics? Now, and I get it. If it's a large aircraft, it's if you're a 747, you're basically 3 stories off the ground trying to fly that thing. So it's a little tricky. But at the same time, shouldn't you know the absolute basics for being able to navigate and control the aircraft without having all of that? And is the way I see it, it is a horrible accident, and really, it's not so much on the military. Because again, the military did everything they were supposed to. They notified the FAA. They told the FAA, we are testing this. The FAA then did its job. They had all the filed flight plans, and they sent the NOTAMs out. And at what point do we let it go that whoever's in office, it's their fault? And we just chalk it up to this was a pilot error. Because your GPS can go down anytime. Ask anyone who's been driving on the ground and all of a sudden their GPS freezes up and they have no clue what they're doing or where they're going. Or road work has changed the map, and so your GPS no longer lines up with the roads. And when we do it on the ground, in the military, in the military now you can get watch GPSs that you can plug in your grid coordinates on your GPS on your wrist. You just kind of orient yourself to where the arrow is pointing towards that grid coordinate, and you just start walking. You Blue Force trackers that someone can give you a 10-digit grid on Blue Force tracker. You plug it in, and you can see, okay, this is exactly where this thing is on the map, and you can use it to navigate your vehicles to that point. But in flying, this whole idea that if your GPS goes down, you can't navigate, you can't land. And I did see some interesting comments from people who are pilots. People commenting is like, yeah, I'm a pilot. Normally, if your GPS goes out, there's a set of protocols. And one of those is gain altitude. Pay attention to your altimeter. Break out have your co-pilot break out those maps and see how high the tallest terrain feature is, and don't go less than 1,000 feet higher than that terrain feature. Just in case your altimeter's off, it gives you some cushion. But it's tragic. It really is. And I don't want to feel like I'm like just taking all the blame and laying squarely at the pilot, but you know, if it was indeed an error on their part, I mean, that sucks. No one would think that a pilot would intentionally fly planes the side of a mountain. I mean, it's happened from the forever nap wanting pilots, but neither here nor there. But just seeing this tragedy and trying to shift the blame from the people who made the actual mistake and making it sound like this was done intentionally or it was covered up. I that is no better than you know, people using the deaths in a school shooting to score political points. It is awful. It is tragic that it happened to begin with, but using the dead bodies as your soapbox, I don't think that's I don't think that's the proper response. That is abusive to the memory of the dead, to the families. And I've seen the family members, like after Parkland, you had some parents who were very, it's tragic what happened, but I don't want you to use my kid for this. Then you have other parents, like, I don't know, Fred Gutenberg, that will go flaunt his dead daughter because it gets him attention. Look at my daughter, look at my daughter. We owe this to my daughter. It's like, no, I do not owe anything to your daughter. What happened to her was an absolute tragedy. But to act like I owe giving up rights to your daughter in memory of your daughter, no. I will only give up my rights at one point, and that is when I cease breathing. That is when my rights will be given up. Not because your child died. It's like this whole idea of just trying to shift the blame to everybody but who's responsible. Did the military play a part? Yes. The most accurate headline I've seen is military linked to this crash. And that's all it is. It's a link. It's not causal. It's not like they're testing a new laser weapon and shot the engine block out of that aircraft and it crashed to the ground. They were testing blocking GPS signal, and turns out it works. And yeah, like I said, 3 other planes lost their GPS. and managed to land safely at night without without anything other than the GPS going down. So if it was this giant failure by the FAA the and the military, why didn't those planes crash? What did they do differently that allowed them to fly that same corridor and safely land that this fourth plane did not? Probably won't ever be an answer to that question, because certain questions they don't want answered. Certain questions they would rather just point and scream and yell, because that's all they got. Alrighty, so another crazy thing that has been going on. If I go to the right link. Ah, I can't find it. But so here recently, this is like, again, this is like a year-old case, almost like a year and a half, that it's suddenly getting attention again. But the left is suddenly defending George Zimmerman. As a refresher for people whose the name George Zimmerman does not bring you any recall, he was a man who was accused of being a racist and blah, 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 because he shot and killed a poor, defenseless black teenager for no reason. And it's so tragic. He's a horrible criminal. They try to hide stand your ground law to be able to get away with committing murder. Yes. Trayvon Martin. We all remember the story and how, Barack Obama, if I had a son, he would look like Trayvon Martin. But we remember that. I remember that, at least. Then it came out, and the media is putting out all these stories of Trayvon Martin showing he's like 12 years old. He's just a sweet little kid, and he's just so adorable. You just want to grab him up and snuggle him, and he's a cute, handsome little kid. He's gonna go do great things. And the media never showed was him as 17-year-old Trayvon Martin, smoking the blunts, waving the guns around, dressing and acting like a thug in social media videos and pictures. They don't tell you about how he had his wall locker at school searched, and they found a bunch of expensive stolen watches in it. But he never got in trouble because, that's something that would be reportable to the police. And, well, this is a school in a really good area, and we got like really good numbers. And so we can't let someone actually be held accountable for their actions, because then it makes us look bad, because, those numbers show up, and forget the fact that it makes us look better if we're punishing bad behavior. But, we just can't have the bad numbers. But anyways, the night in question, Trayvon Martin is found by George Zimmerman. He's a part of the local neighborhood patrol, neighborhood watch, whatever they called their program. And as he's doing his rounds, he sees a young black man in a hoodie with his hood pulled up over his head, kind of skulking around houses and, looking in the windows. And the media was like, well, it was raining. He's just under the eaves trying to keep from getting rained on. And it turns out that it was like a light sprinkle at best, like a misting, if you will. And George Zimmerman, he did the first thing right. He called the police on the non-emergency line and said, hey, I'm part of this community patrol, and there's a young man, appears African American, skulking around these windows and looking in them, and yeah, I think he might be up to no good. And what's the first thing the cop said to him? Do not approach him. Do not go near him. Just stay back, observe, report, and we will send an officer to check it out. So then George Zimmerman does what every normal human male does. He ignores advice. And he goes up and he confronts Trayvon Martin. Hey, what are you doing? Now, maybe there were some words had, I don't know. It's really, in the court record, it wasn't really too clear. But Trayvon Martin physically attacks George Zimmerman, who initiated the contact. We have to keep this in mind. He initiated the contact. He put himself into a position to where he would be attacked. And he was tackled to the ground. He's getting punched in the face, having his head beat against the concrete. He gets into his pocket. He is able to get a hold of his gun, and he shoots Trayvon Martin, kills him, and yep, the rest is history. A trial. And everyone's talking about how George Zimmerman, he tried to hide behind stand your ground. Well, the defense never claimed stand your ground. They claim self-defense, but not stand your ground, because for stand your ground to apply, he would have had to be standing on the sidewalk and make no contact with Trayvon Martin. Just like looks over, I'm just going to keep walking, mind my own business, and then he gets tackled by Trayvon Martin. That's the only way it could have applied. Like if he was on the phone 911, yeah, I'm walking away. I'm just going to come over here, mind my own business. Oh my God, I'm being attacked. But then it would have been on a record of it. But that doesn't exist. Defense never argued that. But he was acquitted of murder because they're able to prove by the defense that, yes, he was attacked. Because he was being non-confrontational. He wasn't trying to pick a fight. But then he got attacked anyways. And he was in legit fear for his life. And he pulled a gun. Well, fast forward however many years. This goes back to last summer in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Oh, Cheyenne, Wyoming. You have a local bartender who has been getting threats, had stalkers, starts carrying a gun. Leaving the bar where the bartender works, starts getting catcalled from across the street and harassed and called names. The bartender, they're not going to take this sitting down, so they walk across the road. And they get into a verbal altercation with the person doing the verbal harassment. And at some point, this turns into fisticuffs. This turns into a scuffle, a kerfuffle. And the bartender's pushed to the ground. There's no reports of any threats to follow on with the pushing to the ground with any sort of violence. Just bartender pushed to the ground. And that's when the bartender pulls out a handgun, cocks the handgun, or maybe I think it was I think they actually jacked around into the chamber and brandishes the firearm at the mean old cat-calling person, name caller. Well, the left would have you believe that this person, who right now their defense is trying to hide behind Wyoming's stand your ground law, this person is more justified than George Zimmerman. And every argument they're making, if you applied it to George Zimmerman, it would be just perfectly lined up. Like, oh my God, you support George Zimmerman now. No, I don't. He was a racist. He was out of his way trying to kill somebody. He was looking for a fight. Well, the only reason that the left is taking the side of the person who brandished the firearm is because they were arrested for unlawful possession with, I forgot what the, because it wasn't standard unlawful possession like a domestic abuser or a felon who possesses a firearm, but not the federal law, but whatever their state law is, like illegal possession of a weapon with the intent to commit a crime, the intent to cause bodily harm. I forget what the actual Wyoming law is that the bartender was arrested for. But everyone's all butthurt because it's like, well, it's the same argument. Same argument as George Zimmerman. If the bartender just kept walking, despite the cat calls and anything else, the calling of naughty names, and then the person had come up on the bartender and pushed the bartender to the ground at that point and was clearly moving in a way that was an ongoing threat, and the bartender pulled out the gun. Okay, that's a clear-cut case of you're brandishing in self-defense. But the problem is you can't put yourself in the position to need to use self-defense and still have it be a viable option for your defense. Because there's a surveillance video of bartender crossing the road to go confront. And it is very possible that the bartender became the belligerent one who actually started stopping the other person. I don't know. I haven't seen the surveillance footage yet. And then the other person shoved the bartender down self-defense because this is a crazy person here. But I think the biggest reason, the absolute largest reason that the left is suddenly defending George Zimmerman, whether they know it or not, whether they will admit it or not, is because of the bartender. It's because the bartender is part of that fabled, protected, rainbow alphabet class of people. Yes, that's right. The bartender's a dude who feels pretty. And I think that's like the main reason why the left has glommed onto this, because, oh my God, this was an attack against one of our transgendered people that we're so allied with. And it's just absolutely ridiculous that they let this poor trans person be a victim and not stand up for their rights to defend themselves. That's because Wyoming's full of bigots. See, no, it's not that at all. The problem is your trans woman bartender Instead of trying to avoid the confrontation after it was reportedly initiated by this third party, turned around and hauled ass across the road and got face to face with the person who was either catcalling or calling me names. They they made the contact worse. They increased the likelihood of having a physical altercation. Self-defense kind of goes out the window when you're almost egging a person on into laying a hand on you. It's kind of reminiscent of the self-defense claim that that kid in Texas, Carmelo Anthony. Well, I was defending myself. Yet you have all these witnesses saying, "Put a hand on me. Put a hand on me. I dare you. I dare you to put a hand on me." When the poor kid who died said, "No, this is not your area. You need to leave," and put a hand on him. He was already making threats. He was already making threats that there will be a consequence if you do this. And why people think you can just act the fool and then be able to, "Oh, I was just defending myself." No, it's not cool. I mean, and you see this a lot in the way they misrepresent cases all the time in media. So I was watching this show on Max. I think it's Disorder in the Court. Maybe it's Hulu, but we get our HBO Max through Hulu, so it gets a little confusing at times. The show Disorder in the Court, and they were referencing a case that was a self-defense case, and then they referenced George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin, and had none of the facts right. And these are lawyers. These are attorneys. People who lives depend on them getting the facts right. Whether you are a defense attorney, if you don't have your facts 100% right, buttoned up, there's a possibility, depending on what your client is accused of, they could be going to prison for the rest of their natural lives, or even getting the death penalty if it's a capital case. If you're a prosecutor, if you don't have your facts right, have all your ducks in a row, there's a possibility that that person that you're prosecuting walks away. And they get a not guilty verdict, and they're not able to be touched again on these crimes. And if they're a bad enough person, you want them to be taken out of society. You want them removed from society for good reason. And you're just hoping they screw up in a way that doesn't cost someone their life, but you could finally, like, couldn't get you on those, but we've got all the facts on this one, Sonny Jim. You're going down. And it's just, like, how can people not pay attention to the facts? Why is it you have similar facts between these two cases, but because the person who pulled the gun in this one was a trans person. They get the 100% benefit of the doubt. There's no way this person was doing anything illegal. This is straight up self-defense 101. But you have a chubby, half Jewish, half Hispanic person. I'm still trying to math this out. How and the side that is body positive and no anti-Semitism, but they spout the most anti-Semitic crap, and pro Hispanic people. Like, I mean, on the intersectionality scale, George Zimmerman was, he had Trayvon Martin 3-1. The only thing on the intersectionality scale that Trayvon had was that he was black. So why didn't the half Mexican, or I think he's actually half Cuban, half Jewish, overweight person, why didn't he get the benefit of the left? Because racism, straight up. Because they never called George Zimmerman black, or they never called him Jewish, they never called him Hispanic. They just always called him a white guy. They would leave his ethnicity out because the minute you brought his ethnicity in, holy cow, it's a game changer in the public narrative. Because George Zimmerman, he is about as wide as the desktop this computer's sitting on. But yeah, it's just utterly ridiculous that the left is finally defending George Zimmerman. They just don't even know it yet. So I'm waiting to see some of the liberal responses on Facebook to, oh, so George Zimmerman did nothing wrong then. If this person did nothing wrong, George Zimmerman definitely didn't do anything wrong. Oh my goodness. Is there any other wild, wacky stories? I guess there's one I'll get into real quick. The Ty Cobb, a former attorney for the Trump administration. Apparently, he says Donald Trump has frontal lobe illness, which, I mean, I doubt he has access to his medical records. Keep in mind, this is also reporting from Raw Story. Raw Story is rarely right-leaning. They'd love to find a good thing to say things about. All right, so former Trump administration official Ty Cobb spoke at length Saturday about what he describes as President Donald Trump's frontal lobe illness and the signals of which were evident when comparing behavior between administrations. He's always been a malignant narcissist, but that narcissism has no frontal lobe restraints, Cobb said, speaking to former MSNBC host Mehdi Hasan in a video published Saturday by Zetio. So, Cobb served as an attorney for the first Trump administration, representing the White House during the Mueller investigation into Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin, regarding interference with the 2016 election. Someone who reported directly to Trump, Cobb was asked by Hassan whether he believed Trump was legitimately in cognitive mental decline. The cognitive decline is real, Cobb said bluntly. Certainly, the country see that as these despicable memes that he posts of former President Barack Obama arrested in the Oval Office, him in a fighter plane pouring excrement over No Kings protesters, his phrase yesterday criticizing Abdul al-Sayed. Oh my God, he didn't say his full name. they added Abdul in brackets. That means Ty Cobb didn't say it. And as Abdul Rahman Al Saeed has stated, if you cannot say my name, keep my name out of your damn mouth. So where is Ty Cobb? He's getting away just calling him El Saeed. He didn't even say his full name. What a loser. What an anti-Islamophobic loser this guy is. The kind of things that basically drain the dignity of the office of the president and demean our country around the world. Those are the signals of serious cognitive decline. Well, he's sundown because things happen between 2 and 4 in the morning. Now he falls asleep, counting these other public appearances. Yeah. This really seems like someone who he represented the White House, but not necessarily Trump during all of the Mueller investigation and all of that. So not necessarily represented Donald Trump. So maybe Trump is like dealt with him in passing. It's like, oh no, I've got to do a deposition. Okay, let's get this done. Not really pay attention to him, and this guy's just jaded. I don't know. Because honestly, the same people accusing Trump of being so far just mentally gone, just he's not there. All this cognitive decline. Until Joe Biden started speaking like he had a stroke on the debate stage with Donald Trump in 2024. They spent the previous 4 years, but this is just, look at him. All this energy, we got to chase Joe Biden around. We can't keep up with him. Same guy that during the administration, when he was being investigated or before he got in office, or whatever, was it after he was in office? I don't remember, one of these two. But when he had the Robert Hur investigations going on into Joe Biden and his classified documents hiding in the garage next to his Corvette. Very secure. No one's ever broken into a garage before. And also at his office at the Wharton Business School. I think it was at Wharton. I know it was at Penn. I know for sure it was at Penn. Maybe it was at Wharton, maybe not, but at Penn. Office that he shared with, that had access to it by Chinese educators with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Like not locked in a safe, just kind of in a file drawer that anyone could get into. But this same guy who was, oh my gosh, he's sharp as a tack, and we just can't keep up with him. He thinks circles around us. That guy who was said in the he was not recommended for prosecution because he would come off as as sympathetic to juries as a forgetful old man. I get Donald Trump's not my cup of tea. It wasn't the first time around. He makes me have to defend him. I shouldn't have to defend a sitting president, regardless of who it is. But Trump makes me have to defend him. Now, I'm not going to come out and do, yeah, MAGA, woo! Make America great again, yeah, Betty. I ain't going to do that crap. I believe in the sentiment of MAGA. I do. But to just sycophantically follow Donald Trump because The same guy who's going to make America great again is the same one who also said, take the guns, then due process. I'm sorry, if you're going to have your rights taken by the government, by God, that unless you're actively shooting at police officers, the FBI, or you know, taking up arms overseas in active combat against the armed forces of America, you should absolutely 100% have your due process before your rights are taken. If you're committing treason, I don't think they should hang you and then try your corpse. Because how embarrassing would that be? We caught this guy committing treason. Thunk. Hung him. Then the investigation comes out and they try the corpse and oh damn it. He wasn't actually committing treason. He was spying on behalf of us. Son of a biscuit eater. You should never, ever, ever lose your rights before you have due process. Donald Trump. And yeah, but at the same time, this Ty Cobb fella, I'm sure he's like any number of other jaded administration personnel that like Miles Taylor, a guy that no one ever heard of. He wrote a book anonymously because I'm in the government. I don't want them to retaliate. I have to wait till I'm out of the government to say my name. So all these, this general who no one knows who it is stated he has a problem with Donald Trump, blah, blah, blah. Okay, has he resigned? Has he resigned in protest? Because I don't care if you like Donald Trump or if you don't like Donald Trump. If you can't stand Donald Trump politically and you get an order as a general, you're going to do X, Y, or Z, and you do not take your stars and put them on the desk and say, I'm out. I cannot, in good conscience, fulfill this order. I am resigning under protest. If you do not have the balls to do that, if you just smile and go along, and then once you've retired, you say, I wasn't against that. I wasn't for that. I did it because it was my job." You are at a position where you can go, "No, I'm not doing that. Here's my retirement packet. Yep, email me everything. I have a card scanner at home. I'll digitally sign all my documents at the house. Deuces." You're at that position once you have a star. You can pretty much do most of that once you have your full bird, whether you're a colonel in the every other branch of the military or a captain in the Navy. If you are not resigning under protest and then coming out after you have retired saying how bad this person was and blah, 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 shut up. You can bite my ass. I don't care because there is nothing you can do to convince me that you are so principled on this matter that you went along. You smile and wave, boys, smile and wave. You went through with it. You carried out those orders. I don't care if you are a conservative general and you resign under protest against a Democrat. If you're a liberal general and you resign under protest against Donald Trump, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, I have more respect for you than anyone. Who swallows their dignity, swallows their principles, and just stays right through. And Ty Cobb was one of those, I want to swallow my dignity, And I'm not going to have any principles because now I'm getting a paycheck. That's what it seems to me. He just, whatever, roll out now. Now that I don't have any skin in the game, I can say what I want without repercussions. So I'm going to. Whether he believes it or not, I don't know. Maybe I imagine he genuinely believes that Donald Trump has some sort of frontal lobe illness. Okay, Ty. Prove that Donald Trump has a frontal lobe illness. You can't. You won't, because that means you have to actually put forth evidence other than, well, I saw this, I saw these behaviors, and from all my experience, blah, 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 blah. No, that is not the right answer. Nut up or shut up. Prove that Donald Trump has a cognitive decline caused by frontal lobe illness or exacerbated by frontal lobe illness, or shut up. I don't mean, well, look what he did here. I mean, evidence. Show me medical records. Prove beyond a reasonable doubt, not just trust me, bro. Prove it. Make it so, as Jean-Luc Picard would say. Make it so. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Again, sorry, it's like every couple of weeks I'll do an episode this week, episode next week. Then I'm off for 2 weeks. Again, life is crazy. You have, especially if you have older parents, you know how it is. That really, dealing with older parent issues and between the wife's business and sometimes she gets home late and we don't have rather spend time with her than yelling at the computer because she's pretty, my computer screen's ugly. I can always stare at my face looking back at me for so long. Yeah, you with the mustache, you suck. But do the best I can. I try to stay caught up. At least I'm not coming up with like 2-week-old stories. Like, so did you see this story? It's like, yeah, it's old news now, man. 24-hour news cycle. It was old than 48 hours. What's wrong with you? But thanks for being patient with me. Again, if you're stayed through this far on YouTube, again, thank you. Appreciate it. Be sure to again subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, maybe give the old video a thumbs up. That's always very helpful for the old algorithm monster. If you're following this on the YouTube, or on the podcast platforms, whatever it calls itself, say 4 things every week. Say 4 things every week. Number 1, please subscribe, follow, whatever your platform calls it. Number 2, please rate the podcast. Looking for 5 stars. I'll accept 4, 3 and below. Hit me up on the social medias at Fake Tyler Morgan on the X. And tell me why you think that I deserve 3 or less stars. If it's good constructive criticism, I will take it to heart and I will figure out a way to make it better because I want to be better. I want to improve. Can't improve if you're not giving me good feedback. So 3 below, please hit me up on X again at Fake Tyler Morgan and explain to me why you feel that you need to give me this. And if you're just doing it to be a jerk, please, whatever you have to tell me, make it snarky. I enjoy, if I can laugh at myself when you drop an insult on me, hey, that good on you. I will gladly laugh at myself if you do a good job of poking the old bear, trying to get me worked up and riled up. So, once you have subscribed, rated, please review, say something nice about the show. That way people see it pop up on their, you might like this. They read the reviews and go, oh, well, people generally like this guy. Cool. Once you have done that, subscribed, rated, and reviewed, please share this episode with someone who you think will enjoy it. Send it to someone who you think this will drive them absolutely bat-crap crazy because they don't agree with a damn word I said. I like them. I like driving them crazy. Please help me help you drive them crazy. Anyways, thanks for sharing the episode. Thanks for sticking around and hanging out with me tonight. It means so much to me. Thank you so very much. And as always, stay relentless.
The Tyler Morgan Show is a Relentless Daring media production. The Tyler Morgan Show is supported by its listeners. To support the show, go to ko-fi.com/Tyler Morgan Show to donate there, or relentlessdaring.com and hit the donate button at the top of the page to set up your donation. All music used in the Tyler Morgan Show is used with permission from purpleplanet.com, link in the show notes. 2 Timothy 1:7.